She handed me the divorce papers in the parking lot, still holding the bouquet I had just bought. That was the second gift she threw away that day. My name is Frank Delaney. I'm 58 years old, a combat veteran with 26 years in the Army and over, a decade as a technical instructor on a base in Alabama. I trained men to survive in zones where silence is deadlier than gunfire. But nothing in the manual teaches you how to cope when betrayal comes from someone who knows your voice while you're asleep. The sound of the school anthem was still echoing in the bleachers. It was supposed to be our son's day. Diploma in hand, smile on his face. But all I saw was the reflection of a white envelope, poorly hidden behind her back. She didn't yell. I didn't ask. She just held out the paper. Signed today. Everything's already taken care of. The sentence was as clean as a well-placed shot. I just looked at her. Then I looked at my son, taking pictures with his friends. He didn't see a thing. There, between the cars, with deflating balloons and parents hugging each other, my 21-year marriage ended like a botched mission. No warning, no debrief, no honor. 3 hours later, half our money had vanished from the joint account. The other half no longer existed. But what she didn't know was that I'd spent the last 3 months sleeping on the couch, waking up at 4 a.m. to figure out how she was going to leave me. She didn't know the man she thought was slow was the same man who coordinated nighttime evacuations using silent radios in Kandahar. She forgot one thing. Veterans don't yell. We calculate. And when someone tries to sabotage us, we're already 3 steps ahead. I didn't react. Just shut the car door and left her there, the bouquet dropped between her feet. When you've lived long enough in the field, you learn to recognize emotional ambushes. And this one, no matter how choreographed, was just that, a sentimental trap wrapped in expensive perfume. On the drive home, I opened the banking app. Invalid password. Tried again, and again. Nothing. The phone rang before my last ounce of patience could expire. It was the branch manager, voice trained, but nervous. Mr. Delaney, we had a request today for an emergency transfer from your accounts. Mrs. Catherine authorized it as a co-holder. Can you confirm? I hung up without answering. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I already understood everything. Catherine was meticulous, more than I ever admitted. The kind of woman who organizes closets by color and checks, credit card statements like she's hunting for buried treasure. She knew exactly what to do, and when. But her mistake was thinking I wasn't watching. For 3 months, she tested my boundaries, canceled dinners. Then came solo trips to visit her sister. Her phone always face down. Smiles became rehearsed. Touches stopped happening. Her routine was as precise as mine. But she forgot I'd spent 2 decades reading behavioral heat maps. The difference? When I noticed the change, I didn't confront. I observed. I placed a tracker in her car, swapped out the safe's documents without touching the keys, started recording landline calls with an old recorder she didn't even know still worked. I wasn't trying to save the marriage. I was mapping enemy terrain before withdrawal. The truth is, Catherine didn't just steal my money that afternoon. She started robbing me long before, when she learned to manipulate my trust like it was hers to spend. And what she didn't know was that money hadn't been there for 2 weeks. I had quietly transferred the funds, split them into 3 accounts, each registered with limited power of attorney to names she didn't even know. My older brother, my former supervisor on base, and the pastor from the church she never wanted to attend. I wanted to see how far she'd go while thinking she was invisible. That night I slept alone in the guest room, like I had been. But I slept with the peace only a man who has evidence on 3 flash drives can feel. The irony? That room was the one she always claimed to hate. Too small, no view, smelled like old paper and wood. It was exactly the place where I preserved my sanity and planned her fall. Catherine was never loud. She was elegant in her mistakes and discreet in her malice. The kind of woman who wins sympathy even when she lies. It started small. An extra credit card I approved without reading. Then a company under her name that she claimed was just to make tax stuff easier for her sister's salon. But there was no sister with a salon. There was an accountant, her friend from college, signing the documents with a familiarity that now makes my skin crawl. The first major theft came disguised as a favor. She reorganized our financial structure to protect assets in case of a medical emergency. Used technical terms, she got off some estate planning site. She knew I wouldn't question it. After all, she was the organized one, right? Wrong. She created a fake holding company, then opened a bank account under that company and quietly transferred our house into it, removing my name via a notarial addendum I had signed alongside a home insurance renewal, thinking it was just standard paperwork. She filed it as a tacit agreement for asset division. At the bank, she removed my name from one account claiming I had early cognitive decline and presented a forged report from a doctor who, I later found out, was once her client at her old agency job. She always knew how to charm her way into looking legitimate. But the lowest move? She convinced me to transfer part of my retirement into an investment fund she had discovered. The fund was managed by a Delaware-based company, registered under a fictitious partner. When I investigated, I found the contact email was a Gmail account. The phone number? A prepaid burner. She pulled about $187,000 over 8 months, without me noticing. Because it wasn't just with paperwork, it was with affection. She maintained the illusion of normalcy, made my coffee like always, went to bed at the same time, watched the same shows. She staged a domestic theater so effective that even my son still thought she was the woman who helped me pick out ties. But she overlooked one detail. Veterans learn to mistrust silence when it feels too comfortable. The act began to crack when her excuses started repeating. Same lines, same times, same emotional flatness. One Sunday, she said she was going grocery shopping. I got home from the gym earlier than usual and saw her car parked 2 blocks away, in front of a commercial building. I waited in mine, just watched. 17 minutes later, she came out with a man. They didn't touch, but they laughed like people sharing an old secret. It was the accountant. That's when I realized this wasn't just marital betrayal, it was strategic. She knew if she left emotional traces, I'd react. So she did it all cold, calculated, never crossing the line into scandal. She wanted me to seem paranoid if I confronted her. And it might have worked, if I hadn't recorded everything. Every conversation, every email, every scanned receipt. I wasn't collecting proof of infidelity. I was building a case for financial fraud. And while she thought she was in control, I already had an ally prepared for the counterattack. Marcus Ellison, retired military attorney, specialist in silent litigation. A man who learned the hard way that the American justice system isn't always just. But it can be precise when you feed it the right mix of facts, documents, and silence. Catherine was building a castle on legal sand, and I had already dug the trench. Marcus didn't ask many questions when I showed him the folder. He just adjusted his glasses, scanned the official seals, and said, "She dug her own hole. You just need to pour in the legal concrete." Marcus was ex-JAG, the legal corps of the armed forces. He'd spent 11 years defending soldiers accused of misconduct in the field. He knew exactly where legality ended and ambiguity began. He didn't give speeches. He only asked if what I had was dated, signed, and verifiable. It was. I'd been digitizing everything with timestamps and geolocation. I used an old audit app left over from my days in tech consulting. I recorded conversations using a mic sewn inside my shirt collar, kept every receipt in physical and digital folders, backed up in the cloud, and on 2 encrypted hard drives. Marcus smiled when he saw how it was all organized. She doesn't know she already lost, Frank. But knowing isn't enough. Her scheme was meticulous. Our response had to be surgical. We started with the house. I was still living there, even though she had legally removed my name from the deed. Marcus filed an emergency injunction to freeze the assets based on fraudulent transfer of property. Quietly, without direct notice, he triggered it using the suspicious financial activity tied to the fake holding company she created. 3 days later, the judge signed a preliminary investigation order. Next was the investment fund. With the account number and email I had tracked, we traced the business registration in Delaware and filed an international request via FinCEN, the U.S. Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. The request didn't come from me. It came from a state-certified attorney. Total discretion. Catherine didn't hear a thing. Meanwhile, I kept to the routine. Went to the gym. paid bills, said good morning. She, on the other hand, grew bolder, started going out more at night, taking trips with friends. She only messaged to ask if the dog had eaten. Nothing that screamed guilt. She thought she had already won. The greatest irony? While I was orchestrating her takedown, she treated me like a polite inconvenience. No more fights, just courteous silence. She thought that meant surrender. But every word I spoke was bait, and every silence, an ambush. I got access to the original contract of the holding company through a former colleague on base who now works at the state registry office. Didn't need to force anything. Just asked her to notify me if any document under my name was altered. The next week, she handed me 3 contract amendments with mismatched signatures. One of them dated on a day I was at a conference 200 miles away, backed by GPS and badge records. Marcus gave me the smile I remembered from mission days. The smile of a plan that lands clean, without triggering alarms. She's not going to be able to defend any of this. Her accountant will run first, and when he runs, she'll fall with him. Now we were in the game. And most importantly, Catherine still believed I was the broken man sleeping in the guest room, swallowing defeat with dignity. What she didn't understand is that dignity isn't the same as submission. While she spent in silence, I built a siege. While she hid behind shell companies, I traced every business ID back to her social security number. And the most symbolic part? I kept everything in an old ammo box I brought back from Iraq. A symbol of the war, she started thinking it was a game. When Marcus received the first response from Finson, the file included more than we expected. The Delaware Investment Fund wasn't isolated. It was tied to 7 other companies, each registered under different female names, but sharing overlapping addresses. One stood out, 317 Maple Avenue, Charlotte. The address of an accounting office, belonging to the same accountant seen with Catherine. Marcus connected the dots first. This isn't just about you. This is a laundering network. It's a system that uses relationships as cover to drain assets and reinvest them through third parties. A civilized scam, if you will. Sham marriages, legal transfers, and emotional engineering so precise that no victim suspects a thing until it's too late. Worse yet, the documents were legit, but built on lies convincing enough to slip past any average auditor. The fraud wasn't illegal at first glance. It was just immoral and painfully well calculated. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. A former base colleague reached out with a strange call. He was going through a divorce with a woman who convinced him to invest in an alternative fund. Same playbook, same accountant. Marcus launched a triangulation, cross-referenced social security numbers, suspicious transactions, and falsified medical reports. We found 3 previous cases that had been dismissed, each with the same psychiatrist's signature. The doctor, the one who diagnosed my supposed cognitive decline. A disgraced former university professor, now working in front clinics with fake credentials. The web was deeper than we thought, and the more we pulled, the more Catherine vanished inside the structure. She wasn't the mastermind, she was the perfect pawn. The trustworthy face connecting the scam to affection. The following weekend, Marcus scheduled a meeting with a contact in the DOJ, Department of Justice, specializing in asset crimes and laundering networks. We presented the full dossier, but not on paper. All on sealed flash drives, delivered with signed receipts and notarized authentication. These guys have buried 3 investigations already due to leaked evidence, Marcus said. We're not going to be the next. The agent reviewed the data, spoke very little. If this is what it appears to be, we're not just looking at fraud, we're looking at an organized cell for asset draining. I'll need time and absolute discretion. We agreed, and in the days that followed, the tension remained invisible. Catherine walked around lighter than ever, like someone already rehearsing her new life. She even changed the furniture, swapped out the living room curtains. The old ones, the greenish-gray ones she used to say she hated, were packed in a box. I later found them in the garage trash. They were clean, folded, perfect. But the smell was still the same as when she used to say she loved me. That's when I realized the thing that hurt most wasn't the money. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was the deliberate use of intimacy as a weapon. She used everything I believed was ours, against me, and it wasn't just me. Every man she helped destroy trusted her because of the little things. A favorite dinner, a hand on the shoulder, a well-timed moment of listening. The conspiracy was emotional. Yes, financial. Legal too, but above all, emotional. And now, I had a mission to break the cycle. Not for me, but for everyone who didn't see it in time. Marcus was preparing the final files for the FBI. Me? I was just watching and wiping down the old mug she gave me on our 10th wedding anniversary. To the most trustworthy man in the world. The irony remained intact. But now, it was evidence. The first domino fell on a regular Tuesday morning. Catherine was on the porch, laughing on the phone. She looked relaxed. I left for my usual walk. Half an hour later, the alert came in. Her primary account had been frozen. The holding company, too. The Department of Justice email came BCC'd to Marcus. Direct. Clean. No drama. The evidence submitted is sufficient to initiate a formal investigative proceeding. All associated assets have been frozen for analysis. Confidentiality requested until further notice. And just like that, the tables turned. 2 days later, the accountant vanished. Left town. Car abandoned at a hotel. Apparently fled in fear of a cross-accusation. He was the weakest link and the most exposed. By Friday, Catherine received her first official notice. We were sitting at the breakfast table. She opened the envelope, thinking it was from the bank. Didn't look at me, didn't say a word. She stood up, went to the bedroom, and locked the door. I kept drinking my coffee. From the old mug, with that ironic phrase, to the most trustworthy man in the world. Within 48 hours, the list of identified victims grew to 5, all men between 50 and 65, all with similar marital histories, all financially drained in eerily similar ways. The DOJ, based on the evidence submitted, formed a joint investigation panel. The case went federal, and as part of the process, a public announcement was required, standard for crimes with multiple defendants. The news came out on a Thursday at noon. Local newspaper, radio, and a short piece on the regional NBC station. Asset fraud network involving accountants and marital partnerships under DOJ investigation. Her name was there. Catherine Delaney. Third line, right between the accountant and the doctor who forged the reports. I didn't say a word. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. The family group chat went silent. Her brother deleted Facebook. The friend who always had brunch with her canceled. The neighbor's curtains stayed shut for 3 days. On Saturday, she found me in the kitchen. Puffy eyes, plain clothes, no makeup, no mask. You knew? I didn't answer. She didn't ask anything else, just went back to the bedroom. That night, Marcus sent me a message. A screenshot of an official document. The house was being legally reverted. The judge had approved the request based on consent fraud and forged documentation. The house was back in my name, legally. But I didn't want to be there anymore. The goal was never to keep anything. It was to take away her power to destroy others like me. And that was already done. On Sunday, I got a message from the son of my old base buddy. Thank you, Mr. Delaney. My dad almost fell for it too. He saw the report. He's better now. I closed the phone. Justice was complete. She didn't fall for what she took from me. She fell for what she tried to steal from those who came after. And the most important part? No one saw it coming. Because it wasn't revenge. It was structure. 2 months later, I left the house. I didn't sell it. I donated it to a veteran shelter that helps homeless soldiers get back on their feet. Marcus handled the paperwork. I just signed, with the same calm I had when I turned in my last weapon at the base. I didn't want wall memories. I wanted new silence. I moved into a simple trailer in the Ozark Mountains, a place few people look for, where the cell signal drops often enough to remind me, not everything needs to be online. I wake up at 5, make coffee, walk to the lake with a notebook. I write technical reports for security firms reviewing their protocols. None signed with my name, just a code. FRD. Discreet. Like I've always been. Once a week, I get letters. Not emails. Letters. From men who found out, too late. That trust is also a door that can be broken from the inside. They write short things. Thank you. I got it reversed. I don't feel stupid anymore. I keep them in a metal box at the back of my closet. The same box where I once stored evidence. Now, I store relief. Catherine? I don't know. I don't care to know. The last public report said she was under formal investigation, but not in custody. Doesn't matter. Justice wasn't her paying. It was no one else falling. One morning, I found a stray dog near the fence. Thin, eyes cautious but steady. I tried to approach. He growled. So I waited. 3 days later, he was sleeping in the shade under my trailer. I never gave him a name. He doesn't need an identity to trust me, just time. And maybe that's what's left of it all. Time. And silence. Two luxuries. That cost a lot when you've lived among emotional landmines. On the shelf, there's only one photo. Me, my son, and graduation day. I cut Catherine out of the image. Not out of spite, but because justice is also that. Refusing to give the stage to someone who only ever existed as a manipulative supporting act. And that snowy morning, when the dog laid down by my feet and the coffee cooled in my mug, I knew the war was over. Didn't win. But I didn't lose anything worth keeping. The justice I delivered. No one saw it coming. And that was exactly what she deserved.